and welcome to Polyphonic Tarot. Today we are going to be doing a Celtic Cross reading for a regular client, again, who will remain nameless. As I told you guys, I'm not going to give names anymore, because there's no real point. You know who you are. So thank you again for your reading. Happy to read for someone returning. Always nice to check in. So you, sir, are a Knight of Swords. You are a Gemini. And we are returning to the question of your work situation and how you are transitioning your career, so to speak. And we've done a couple of readings now about that and how it's important for you to be looking for something that is both practical and spiritual. And you've informed me in your email that you are currently trying to make that kind of transition, which I'm very proud of you, but it's really great. I think that's wonderful. So, but that you are starting to have some difficulty balancing the two as you transition from one to the other, and that your current work environment is becoming stressful for various reasons. So we're going to check in with that and see what we can do about that aspect of the situation. So pulled out your significator, Knight of Swords again, as you are a Gemini, and we're just going to go ahead and start. I invoke thee, that thou wilt send Heru, the great angel, who art set over the operations of this secret wisdom, that he may lay his hands invisibly upon these consecrated cards of art, and that thereby we may obtain true knowledge of hidden things, to the glory of thine ineffable name. Amen. Okay, let's see what we've got for you today. Bottom card is the Universe. We're off to a good start. Overall, and then we get the Tower for your overall situation. But that's what we have. Not necessarily a bad thing considering the context of your situation. Since we already know what's going on, it's not necessarily a bad thing yet. Crossing you is the Prince of Cups. Crossing you is the Nine of Cups. Okay, this is still good. Bottom is the Seven of Discs. Behind you is the Four of Discs. And before you is the Six of Swords. All right, I'm going to move all this over. I am using the big taut cards today, clearly, or for this reading, I should say, because I've already done another reading with another deck, but just trying to switch it up and do something different. Perspective, Princess of Swords, environment, Princess of Wands, and hopes and fears, the Emperor, and overall outcome, the Princess of Discs. And again, bottom card is the Universe, Knight of Wands, Ace of Wands. All right. So again, as always, try to keep it as much in the frame as I can. Hope you can see everything. Try my best here. All right. I guess that's good enough. Well, there's a pretty good concentration of fire to start. If I were to give an overview of the elements first, we have a pretty decent amount of fire here. We have an actual little triangle from the Tower connecting to the Princess of Wands and the Emperor. Water, we have the Nine of Cups and the Prince of Cups, which is interesting. And air-wise, we have the Six of Swords and the Princess of Swords, and that's it. And then earth, we have another triangle. Isn't that cool? We have another triangle from the Four of Discs, Seven of Discs, and the Princess of Discs. So we have actually already, it's pretty clear already that you are starting to make this transition of intersecting your spiritual existence with your work existence. Because you have, it's depicted, you have the fire triangle is being intersected by the Earth triangle you have, which is really cool. I mean, every now and then, I've talked about that in some of my technique videos about how it's important to try to look for patterns and shapes and try to come up with ideas based on that. And that's a really cool one. That might be one of the more interesting ones I've ever seen. Because it's so obvious. You have two triangles, and they're even opposites of each other. The base of the fire triangle is here, and the point here, and the base of the earth triangle is here, and the point there. So they're like perfectly crossing right now, which is really good, and they're both perfectly balanced, 3 and 3. So I'm really excited about that because I think that that's a really good thing. But it is clearly not happening without some bumps, because the overall situation is the tower, and so on one hand, I think that this is a good thing because the shakeups that are happening in your life right now aren't necessarily a bad thing because they are forcing you to see the truth more clearly and to put your life into better perspective, I think. I really like that the universe is on the bottom of the deck in conjunction with the tower because it sort of stabilizes the tower a little bit more. Obviously, the tower tends to represent upheavals and calamity and massive changes that happen suddenly and disruptively, but they always have an important truth concealed in them that we have to see or embrace or learn. The tower always represents growing experiences, as does the universe. The universe also represents growing experiences and culminations of things. And I think that those two cards work really well together to kind of show that this is a situation that, yes, is difficult, but as you work through it, it is going to develop you into a stronger person and a person who's more aware of themselves and their connection with the world around them, which is important considering you're going into more of a spiritual type of work. Which is also clearly evidenced by the Princess of Wands in your environment. Not to jump ahead, but it does. Princess of Wands in your environment says that the energy you're putting out to other people, or that other people are getting off of you, is one of excitement, of doing new things, of pursuing ideals, and that sort of thing. It is countered by the Princess of Swords a little bit. The two do go hand in hand, being both princesses, and the Princess of Swords is how you see yourself. You have 3 princesses, actually, in your reading, which is really indicative of the fact that this is it's making you feel very young, this situation. It's kind of revitalizing you, because it's forcing you to do away with things that you just don't necessarily need anymore, and it's forcing you to do away with aspects of yourself that aren't as necessary anymore for the work that you want to do. There is a destructive element of this, but I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. Those 3 princesses are just very strongly all about youth, and they're all connected to you and how you are presenting yourself right now. So you are surrounded by a very youthful aura because of this, or a very youthful energy, perhaps would be a better word. I don't know. Whichever you prefer, it really doesn't matter. Aura, energy, same difference. But yeah, there's this kind of freshness that's coming in from this, and a freshness of perspective that is really positive for the tower. It makes the tower a lot less scary, which is a good way to start this off, so that we don't get too panic-stricken about the tower, as sometimes we can be. The Prince of Cups is a curious card to have crossing you, and I want to say that it's tough to connect it to anything, because the only other card that it's connected to is the 9 of Cups, which isn't a bad thing, of course. Excuse me. Ooh. But I know you had been mentioning that you've been having some difficulties with coworkers at work. But I don't think that really represents them. It may represent partially how you're having to deal with them. Possibly you feel that you can't really explain to them why you are having the problems that you are having as far as focusing on your work and being able to bear certain responsibilities or whatever that is. Whatever problems you are having, which are represented by this 7 of discs here, the kind of growing pains that you're going through right now and the bumps and grinds that you are having in your work, which used to be very solid. Again, the other interesting thing is that you're coming from the 4 of discs, which is so sturdy and solid. You're used to having done this job regularly, and it's been kind of just a very secure thing in your life. It's been very constant. It's been very safe, and your work was dependable and all that. And now, as you try to make this transition, the upheaval in your life that's going on for you right now is destabilizing that work, as you mentioned in your email. And the cool thing is that the Tower is just really shaking up whatever stability you had with the 4 of discs. This is really putting your life kind of upside down. And I don't think it's doing it in a way that's intended to be negative. I really think that it's just part of the process, and that it's not necessarily a bad thing. And I actually see you transitioning out of it fairly soon. I think that as you start to get more organized and start to deal with the logistical end of this more, I do think that it's going to start to become more organized for you. You have the 6 of Swords in the immediate future, which is just a far more organized card. It says that you're going to be able to take whatever pieces are left over from the Tower, whatever rubble is left, and you're going to be able to reorganize it. You're going to be able to, patch your life back together, and it is going to start flowing better, and it's going to feel more structured in a way that is more holistic and more connected to your sense of self. Whereas before, things were organized and structured, but they weren't necessarily inspiring, and perhaps you felt more closed off from the world, and you're moving into a phase where you are more connected to the world and to experience of the world, and it's still organized. I think that's another really cool thing about this little trajectory we have in the middle here, this little horizontal trajectory, from one kind of stability to upheaval and destruction to another kind of stability and another kind of organization. But it's different, and it has a greater sense of awareness to it, if that makes sense. Yeah, and it is connected. The 6 of Swords is connected to the Princess of Swords, which is how you see yourself in this situation right now. And you are seeing yourself as trying to, you're on your guard right now. Is the first thing that we need to say about the Princess of Swords. You're on your guard, and you are wary of the people around you. You don't entirely trust them, and that's partially why I'm not quite sure how to read the Prince of Cups, because the Prince of Cups could possibly represent some people that you are not necessarily getting along well with right now for one reason or another. Again, you mentioned that it's probably related to your work output right now, and that you're having problems communicating why that is. But on the other hand, I get the sense more that it is more of a representation of you. I feel that you are trying to keep this big change that's going through your life kind of under wraps. You're trying to protect yourself about it, and because, and I don't necessarily see that as a bad thing either. But you are kind of trying to stay secretive about this, and again, that's reinforced by the Princess of Swords. You're just very careful about who you tell exactly about what's going on or what choices you've been making. Because I think you just know that people aren't going to necessarily understand the choices you're making or why you're making them. And, I think it's not necessary. You don't necessarily have to share with everyone why you're choosing to do what you're choosing to do, you know? So I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. Now, the other thing that makes me feel that the Prince of Cups isn't all that bad is the fact that it is connected to your Nine of Cups advice, which is really just nailing home the message that it's best for you to continue pursuing what makes you happy. And if as you are starting to make this transition, you feel yourself being happy and really fulfilled, if you feel that sense of fulfillment from doing what you are starting to do, then that's right. And it is your obligation then at that point to yourself to protect that and to uphold that and to keep going with that and to not let people deter you. And if maintaining a certain level of secrecy is or even cunning to an extent, if that's really what you feel is best right now, then great. I think people are aware of the fact that you're making some kind of transition because again, you've got that Princess of Wands in your environment, so people are aware that you are going through some kind of career shift. I think that you're pursuing something new, but either they're not quite sure what it is, or if they do know what it is, they're kind of unsure of it, or they see it as perhaps odd or a little strange, or they don't really understand it. Whatever it is, the Prince of Cups just is a figure that tells me that the problem here is the mysteriousness of what it is you're doing, and the kind of inaccessibility that you have right now. The Prince of Cups is just very difficult to read, and the Prince of Cups intimidates people because they don't know how to read him, and he's just very careful with his emotions and his displays of anything. Not a particularly overt personality, and he, being a Scorpio, he is dark. There's this dark aspect to the Prince of Cups, and a very mysterious aspect to him, and also a kind of spiritual-ish element, because Scorpio being the sign of death and rebirth, it's important to consider that the Prince of Cups is, in his own way, spiritually connected, because he's a pretty intuitive personality. And I'm not just saying that because he's my own my own court card, but it's just true. The Prince of Cups, being a Scorpio, is pretty intuitive and pretty connected to his inner sense of reality. It just, he doesn't necessarily share it with other people all that willingly. So there is, as much as there is an aura of youth about you and freshness, there is also an aura of uncertainty about you that is being projected to people. Interesting. Okay. I think it's interesting that the base of the situation is the Seven of Discs. And the reason I find that interesting is because it's ruled by Saturn, and Saturn is such a heavy, slow-moving planet. And it just is very contradictory to the rush of new energy that is coming into your life and disrupting all of this stability that you are used to. And it wants to stay grounded, I don't know, I just, there's opposition there to whatever current of disruptiveness you are bringing in. Because in one way or another, you're kind of a dissenter right now. You're not working with the group as much as you were, and you're trying to move out of working with that mold and be more independent. And I just, that people are either having a hard time understanding that, or it's not working with the system. And again, not a bad thing, I don't think. I really don't. You actually don't have a whole lot of recurring themes. You have a little bit of Mars, which would contribute to that sense of being kind of going against the grain with other people and causing a little bit of organized chaos, But as far as not being organized or not being able to deal with whatever responsibilities you have in both fields, again, the Six of Swords is pretty clear that you're going to be able to work through that and reorganize yourself. So I wouldn't worry about that too much, and I honestly wouldn't worry too much about the people that you may or may not be ticking off right now, because really you are pursuing what you should be pursuing, I think, and you are also happy right now, and it's important. I think we all have the right to pursue that happiness. It's in the bloody Declaration of Independence, and it's a valid statement that we all have the right to pursue happiness. And I see you in this moment as trying to pursue that, and so people really should not be begrudging you this. It's just difficult for people to understand, So perhaps if you can communicate that to people more clearly, then perhaps they'll understand more, or be more willing to understand, or a little bit more receptive to it. And maybe not. Perhaps the situation better, and the people you're working with. Because you're pretty aware of the situation. Again, the Princess of Swords is very aware. You're very observant of the people around you right now, and you're trying to be very tactful around them, and just protective of yourself. So, I don't think it really matters as far as telling them or not. I don't see any real need to communicate to people why perhaps you've been distracted or not quite with it. I don't think there's really a need at this point. It doesn't really say that there is one, and I just think you have to trust that you're pursuing happiness, and that's what's important here. And the universe reminds us that this is the closing of a chapter, yes, but really it's the beginning of something new and exciting, and it's just, the interesting thing is the universe is associated with the letter He to an extent. Obviously, it isn't technically, if you read in the books, the letter He obviously is associated with either the star or the emperor, depending on who you're reading or whose deck you're using. But the universe very clearly depicts the element of, it is the element of earth, and the element of earth is associated with the letter He. And also the universe depicts the daughter Malkut. It depicts the princess in her philosophical form. And so that is in turn associated with the He. The universe represents the conjoining of the two He concepts in the Tetragrammaton. To give you a small little lesson, it is when the He final becomes the He primal, and the distinction between the two is made null and void. It's just they become one and the same thing, and the vessel for God becomes God itself, essentially. So, why this is significant to your reading is because you have 3 princesses in your reading, all representing you. And I, talking before about that aura of youth and freshness in your life right now, it's not just that. You are doing spiritual work. You are doing the work that you are being called to do, and I just see you as being really connected to to the universe, really being connected to the world around you, and you are developing yourself, and you're growing yourself, and I just think that's a really cool combination of cards to have there. 3 princesses and the universe as being a sort of focal point for the reading. You are doing your best to be, as they say, to be the handmaiden of the Lord. And I think that not only that's a really beautiful thing, but I think that's a really important thing for all of us to try to do. the story of the more history lessons, but the story of the Annunciation is so important for understanding the soul's relationship to God and our individual relationship to God. How our will matches up with that of the divine, and how ultimately we have to kind of empty ourselves and let the Spirit fill us with what we actually need. And I see you as going through that process of emptying yourself right now. And it's a rocky process, clearly. It is not without upheaval, and it certainly is not without ticking people off. Almost the number one sign of someone waking up to their reality, or waking up to the greater reality around them, is a spirit of revolutionariness. A spirit of revolution, I suppose, is the better grammatical way of saying it, but a spirit of revolution, a spirit of pushing against people and agitating people. Jesus was a revolutionary, and Jesus was someone who made a lot of people very upset because he disturbed the order of things. And that's kind of what you're doing now in your workplace, in your own small way. You are also kind of disturbing the natural order of things. And I'm sorry that that's not jiving with people. You just have to keep pursuing it, and you have to remain dedicated to your cause. Now, the two cards I have not talked about yet. My gosh, I haven't realized I hadn't talked about them. Hopes and fears are represented by the Emperor, and you are really looking to get in a place where you have more control over the situation, where you're more independent, and you finally have everything just under control. You are really looking forward to the moment where you realize, where things have stabilized and you are the person in charge of those things. That's what you are looking for right now. You want to get control over this tower situation and be your own boss. I think that's appealing to you right now. Or be more of your own person, your own boss, that kind of thing. And the overall outcome is the Princess of Discs. And if there is any card in the tarot that represents the Virgin Mary, or the sense of the idea of the soul being submissive to God, it is the Princess of Discs. That is the number one card for representing submission to the divine will. Period. She represents the ultimate vessel. She is as humble and simple and completely material, as opposed to completely spiritual. She's the lowest point on the tree of life. She is the lowest of all the court cards. And because of that, she is able to become the highest of the court cards. She is able to transition. And so the ultimate outcome here for you, being the Princess of Discs, is just that you are moving to a point where you are becoming more of a student of the universe, or whatever. The Princess of Discs is just saying that ultimately you're going to have to relearn how to live your life in this new way, that it is going to continue to be a learning experience, both practically and spiritually, and that, this is going to allow you to continue growing, which is important. I think before, in your old job, or whatever job you're leaving, I should say, you just felt stuck, and there wasn't a whole lot of growing, and this is opening a channel for you to continue growing, which is so important, and to grow spiritually, and to do work that is humble, and that's not meant to be read as bad. It's humble work, and humble work can be so satisfying. It really can. It can be so fulfilling. And again, I don't know what it is exactly you've discovered that you're going to start doing. I know you mentioned it was with a group of people. I don't know what exactly that entails, but I do see that as just being a good thing for you, and allowing you to serve others more, and develop. I think this is really good. Your readings are always pretty interesting. I have to tell you that. You always have really interesting readings. Um, because of the choices that you're making in life, and because of the spirituality that you're trying to bring into your life. It's always really clear in your readings that that's your focus, and I think that's really admirable. So, I think that this is that you're on the right track. I really do. So I wouldn't let whoever at work is trying to deter you or dissuade you or give you a hard time. I kind of wouldn't pay too much attention to them. You really have your own stuff to deal with right now, and it's kind of a lot. So I think the best you can do is just try your best to, make sure that you leave your job gracefully. You don't want to leave on a bad note. But at the same time, it doesn't really matter necessarily if people understand why or why not you're doing something, or people don't really need to know your real motivations. If you feel that that's something you need to share with people, then that there is a chance that that might allow people to understand. Again, because there is that kind of veil of uncertainty about you right now, that is causing the problems. The problems are rooted in that Prince of Cups role that you are playing. But at the same time, the Prince of Cups is not depicted in the reading in a bad way. Remember, he was grounded to the Nine of Cups. So it really is up to you. It's kind of your choice what you share with people. And I really don't have much advice as far as that is concerned. And I really just think that we need. I think my job here is to just encourage you and to assure you that what you're doing is a good thing, and that this is a good thing for you and for other people. In doing what's good for you, you are also ultimately doing what is best for the world around you. And no one can ask more of you as a human being. That's kind of the primary responsibility we all have, to go on whatever journey is going to improve us and improve ourselves and improve the people around us and improve the world around us. That's all any of us can do. And we do not necessarily get to choose how that happens. We do not necessarily get to choose the results of that work, but we do get to choose to embrace the work in the first place or not embrace the work. And I think you're choosing to embrace the work, and I want to encourage that choice and to congratulate you for that choice and to applaud you for that choice. I think that's important. I really do. So I wish you the best of luck with this. I really hope it does get better, and just do your best to remain organized. I know it's kind of tough right now, and it doesn't really say how you can get more organized. It didn't really provide too much advice about that. It just said keep doing what you're doing and know that what you're moving into is what you really love, and that's what's important here. And that's about it. So, let me know what you think, and I hope it was helpful, and I hope it provided you with some food for thought, and I wish you the best of luck with your transition. And I really think it's going to be all okay. I do. And if I don't get to speak to you or do another reading for you before then, have a happy Thanksgiving. And I wish you the best of luck with everything, all right? Take care. Bye-bye.